Hello guys and girls listening, this is Rihapega and this is r/EntitledParents, so let's check it out. You weren't eating it, so I stole it and gave it to my kid. So this just happened a few hours ago on my flight home, and I figure I will post this while it was still fresh in my mind. Also, apologies for formatting, this is on mobile. EM is entitled Mom, EC is entitled Child, FA is Flight Attendant. So my flight had just taken off, and they were coming around with food. Seated next to me is EM and her EC. They told the FA that they didn't want to buy anything and they just got water and refused the free snacks. The FA double checks to make sure they didn't want anything, and again they refuse. I had a bit of an upset stomach at the time and knew I wasn't going to eat anything right then. But I bought some Pringles and got their free cookies with my ginger ale to snack on later. It was a 4-hour flight. Less than 10 minutes later, the kid starts whining that he wants Pringles. The EM eyes mine but doesn't say anything. Noticing her look, I quickly stash mine into my bag, thinking she will be a decent human and not go through my stuff, before going to use the washroom. There is a bit of a line at the back of the plane, so I'm gone for 10 minutes at the most. I come back and my bag is open on my seat, food all pulled out, and the EC is there munching on my fucking food. The cookies are already done and the kid is stuffing his face with my Pringles. Excuse me miss, but did you go into my bag and take my food? You weren't eating it and my child was hungry. I didn't even hesitate before hitting the attendant button. Miss, that was my food that I paid for. You had no right to take it. It's not like you were eating it and you could use to lose some weight anyways. It's at this point in time that the same FA that sold me the Pringles comes over and asks what the problem was. I had left to use the washroom and I came back to find this lady had gone through my bag to take the food I had purchased out and had given it to her child. No, I didn't. I purchased those. Ma'am, you refused my offer for any food twice. Did you take her food? She wasn't eating it. At this point in time, I lean over to the EC. Hey little man, can you do me a favor? He nodded, still stuffing his face with my Pringles. Can you point to where your mom got the chips from? Immediately, he points to my bag. Ma'am, you're going to have to pay her back for her chips. No way, she wasn't eating them. Regardless, if she was eating them or not, you stole what she purchased. Either you buy her a new pack or we will have to get police to intervene once we land. EM loses her fucking mind at this, but the FA stands her ground and makes her buy me a new set of chips. She also moves me to an empty row in the back and sets me up with another packet of the free cookies and another drink. The FA then lets me know that she will be informing the police of what happened and she was very sorry that it happened. I don't know if she wound up getting arrested once she left the plane, but I sure as hell hope I never run into her again. Entitled mom and entitled kid at a restaurant. EM equals entitled mom, EK equals entitled kid. So I was around 17 at the time of this whole ordeal happening, and my first ever job was being a server at a restaurant. It is not a massive big brand restaurant, so the food wasn't always to the highest of standards, but nevertheless it was still an amazing place. I was working on a weekend night and I was covering the front house for a couple minutes whilst my friend had gone to the toilet when the entitled family walked in. Straight from the start I could tell that this woman was not having the best of days, but I greeted them welcomely and asked the EM if she would like any kid menus. I assume her kids were like 5 to 7 at the time. She looks at me in the eye and tells me, my kids aren't disabled, you can ask them. I was shocked, but I tried to be as polite as possible and responded with, sorry ma'am, and asked her kids, to which they said, no, I want an adult menu. The restaurant being an Italian restaurant, the portions were quite big on the adult menu as it was owned by an Italian family. So I gladly took them to their table and handed them 3 adult menus. I then excused myself as I ran back to the front house to bring in another family, and whilst doing this, my friend just got back from the toilet and took back over the front table. I sat this family down and realized that I knew the daughter, so I made casual chit chat with the family as we were quite good friends when I hear EM shout, excuse me, shouldn't you be taking my order instead of talking? I apologize and gladly take their order, now that I was no longer covering the front house. I passed the orders on and it was a busy night, so the food wasn't coming out very quickly. Then I hand EM the food her and her 2 brats order and come back 5 to 10 minutes later to ask if everything is alright, when the EK says no. So I ask what is wrong and he tells me that he doesn't like what he ordered. So I say, Okay, buddy, we'll try a bit more. But I was cut off by the EM, who was demanding a refund on the child's food. I politely tell the lady that we cannot do that as there was nothing wrong with the food. She did not like that answer and tasted the pasta and spat it out over the table and proceeded to retch. Our food might not have always been the best, but it was never that bad, so I tell her that unfortunately there is nothing I can do. At this point, the whole restaurant is looking at us. Fearing that this could get any worse, I got a manager who told her the same exact thing, to which the M responds, "So what about the rude waiter who has neglected us the whole night?" I step in and stand my ground as I felt like I had handled the situation quite well to say, "No, I have not done anything wrong." This is when she tells my manager that I had been gossiping about her with another family, which I had not. But thankfully the daughter and father who I knew stepped in and backed me up, saying that I had been perfect and not done a thing wrong. The woman then proceeds to pack her things and try to leave the restaurant when I step in front of the door and tell her she is not leaving without paying. She refused and kept on trying to shove me out of the way. Luckily, I'm quite big for my age, so she didn't really stand a chance. My manager had called the cops at this point and they had arrived and told her she had two options, either pay and leave or go to jail. Unwillingly, she paid for the meal and took her brats away. Also, the family I knew tipped on her behalf, so at least there was some good in my story. It's okay, they are just playing. Back on this up again, as my brain decided to remember another fun experience from my time working at the theme park. To add some context, it was a theme park and zoo. The ride I worked on, retail department, was based within a part of the zoo. The enclosures that surrounded the ride were lions, giraffes, zebras, rhinos, various birds in an aviary, and the star of this story, the tortoise enclosure. The tortoise enclosure one had a low wall and the rest was a fence, which was a bit taller. It was a busy day at the height of the summer holidays and there was people everywhere. With only me and my supervisor working, we couldn't be as vigilant as we normally would be able to. I had just finished serving a family and something caught my eye. There was a large family over by the tortoise enclosure, and for a second I thought I saw several children in with the tortoises. Thinking I was just seeing things, I looked again. I was not just seeing things. Noticing the issue, I immediately grabbed a park radio and marched over, apologizing to the queue of guests as I did so. I marched up the family and saw that the children were indeed in the enclosure with the animals. At first I spoke politely but made sure I used a very firm tone, as not only was it a danger for the animals but the children themselves. I addressed the group of parents watching their children and asked if they could please remove them from the enclosure as it was a safety hazard for the animals and the children, along with reminding them that it was unacceptable to allow their children to play in the enclosure. They removed the children without really saying anything to me. Thinking that was the end of the problem, I just returned to my till and continued serving the other guests while apologizing for the inconvenience. Not even 10 minutes later, I looked over and the children were in the enclosure again. That was it. I was so angry I shouted at the top of my lungs across the area between my shop and the enclosure. It was maybe like 30 meters, I don't know. I shouted that they needed to remove their children now. This drew a lot of attention from all of the people in the area. It went silent. Annoyingly, they completely ignored my shout and I again grabbed the radio and marched over. The conversation went something along the lines of, "I have asked you already, remove your children from the enclosure as I will call security since I have already asked you once. They are just playing, they aren't dangerous animals anyway." These tortoises were the giant ones. Not sure exactly what species they were, but they are still a wild animal and need to be respected as such. Even non-aggressive deserve to receive the same treatment as any other animal. Remove your children now. I have given you a chance, I'm not calling security. Using the radio, I called for security to come. Unfortunately, we can't give information as to why we need security over the radio, as guests might overhear if they are near a member of staff with a radio on them. We can only give a rough level of severity. It took about 5 minutes for a member of security to come down to meet me. By this point, the family had realized I was serious and had removed their children from the enclosure and had packed their stuff up. Just as security had got to me and I was explaining what had happened, they had started to walk away. Unfortunately for them, they were in a large group and were easily spotted as the area was quite open. I was filled in by a member of security later on. They told me that they had been spoken to, CCTV had been reviewed, proving what they had done, and they had been removed from the park. This all happened around midday 1 p.m, so quite early, and this was a group of at least 14 adults and children of varying ages. At £38 per ticket for any person over the age of 4 years old, it was an expensive lesson that I hope they learned. Too long, didn't read. Family let kids play in animal enclosure and get kicked out of the park. Girls and guys, I would love to hear your comments about this subreddit community. Also comment on what subreddit I should do next. As always, a like, comment and share is greatly appreciated. And please subscribe if you like the content. Bye!